Good morning, all. In the last lecture, we have discussed about new economic reforms. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization are the three key aspects of new economic reforms, and we have learned about liberalization and privatization in that lecture. So, today we'll see what is globalization. Globalization means linking the economy of a country with the economies of other countries by means of free trade, free mobility of capital and labor, etc. So, this means globalization is actually linking the economy of a country with the other economies or with other economies all over the world. That is linking one market or integration of a market of a country with the other markets or with other global economies. So, because of this globalization, the interconnectedness between the economies of different nations increases. And also, because of globalization, we can say that the flow of capital, the flow of goods and services, the flow of technology, people, expertise, everything flows freely from one economy to other. Okay, or we can say that all these things flows freely from one country to another. And so we thought of globalization, or India decided to go for globalization as part of its new economic reforms. So, and as a result, we invited multinational companies to invest in India. And thus, Indian economy was connected to, or it had a close link to other economies. That is the world economy. Okay. So, as a result of this unrestricted flow of goods and services, technology, expertise, everything, okay, everything from other countries in the world started to flow freely to India. And because of this increased cooperation of Indian economy with different economies across the world, we started growing, or our economy started growing. So ultimately, the aim of globalization is to look upon the world as a global village. Okay, that is the ultimate aim of globalization. And as a result of globalization, our economy started improving, or our competition increased, our efficiency increased, productivity increased. Okay, because we started competing with multinational companies. So we started raising ourselves to their level. Okay, so that is one advantage. And another thing is we started getting all these things, that is technology and investment from other countries to our nation. Now let's see what are the measures adopted for globalization in India. First one is increase in foreign investment. That is, as part of economic reforms, the limit for foreign capital investment was increased. That we have already discussed, right? So that is even 100% foreign direct investment was allowed in some industries. In most of the industries, the foreign investment was allowed, and in different industries, the percentage allowed was different. But even 100% was allowed in some industries. There was not much regulations regarding this. Not regulations, restrictions regarding this. Then another thing is there was FERA, that is Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA. This act was actually acting as a hindrance in the free flow of foreign capital to our country. But this FERA was abolished and it was replaced with a much more liberal act, that is FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. Okay, so since FERA was replaced with FEMA, which is much more liberal when compared to FERA, foreign investment was increasing in our country. And in addition to this, many incentives were provided to our NRIs, that is non-resident Indians, to attract them to make investments in India. Okay, so like through these measures, foreign capital investment in India was increased. That was the first measure. Then, second one is partial convertibility of Indian rupee. That is, any foreign currency like dollar or pound, anything can be sold or bought at a price determined by the market forces for doing any kind of foreign transactions like export and import of goods and services, or for making payment, that is interest payment or dividend payments, then for making remitting money to meet family expenses. For such transactions, such foreign transactions, anybody can buy or sell foreign currency at a price determined by the market forces. Okay, that is called partial convertibility of Indian rupee. It is called partial because this doesn't include capital transactions. Okay, for capital transactions, this kind of price determination is not included. That is why it is called partial convertibility. Okay, that is partial convertibility of Indian rupee. Then next one is liberal and long-term foreign trade policy. That is, according to our new economic reforms, foreign trade policy or export-import policy, or we call it as EXIM policy. Okay, this export-import policy was enforced for a longer duration, that is 5 years. Okay, that was a change brought about in economic reforms. And in this policy, that is in EXIM policies, we started reducing the restrictions. Okay, we started reducing our administrative controls over the foreign trade. Most of the restrictions for foreign trade was removed or minimized, and we wanted to ensure open competition. So we took measures for encouraging competition. So these are some of the measures adopted through new economic reforms in order to ensure a better foreign trade. Okay. Then next point is we learn about this foreign trade policy or EXIM policy in this video itself. So next one is reduction in tariffs. That is, in order to promote foreign trade in India, the customs duties and tariffs which were imposed on imports and exports, all these were reduced. Through it was actually gradually reduced because initially the restrictions were too much. Later on, we started reducing the restrictions. Okay, that is customs duties and tariffs were reduced. On initially it was like this, only this much quantity can be imported, or for importing this much quantity you need to pay a very high tax. Such duties are all reduced, and the quotas, that is only this much can be imported, that much can be imported or exported, like that, quotas were there. So many quotas, or so much of such restrictions were there. All such restrictions were removed, okay, or reduced. Then next point is export promotion measures. That is, we understood that our balance of payment deficit, we had a very big issue regarding our balance of payment deficit. So in order to reduce this, or in order to overcome this crisis, what we wanted is we wanted to promote exports. So for promoting exports, several measures were adopted. That is, some special facilities like concessional loans, then tax exemptions, then and also so many procedures were there. So such procedures were simplified for uh, promoting export. Okay, so such measures have been taken in the, or such measures were included in the foreign trade policy to support our exporters, and so that we can increase the Indian export. Okay, so that is another measure taken for increasing or adopting globalization. The next one is freedom to repatriate. That is, before new economic reforms, foreign investment was allowed in India on a non-repatriation basis. That is, the foreign investors, they cannot take back their income on their foreign investment back to their country without the approval of RBI, without prior approval of RBI, that is Reserve Bank of India. That is, if a foreigner invests some money in India and he gets profit out of it, and if he wants to take that profit, take that money back to his country, then he need prior approval from RBI. Okay, so that was actually not very interested or not very interesting for the investors, or they will not be interested to make investments in India because of this criteria. Okay, so that was acting as a hindrance for foreign investment in our country. So this was removed in new economic reforms. That is, now foreign investors are free to take back their money or take back their investment or the income that they generated from the investment back to their country. Okay, this attracted so many foreign investors to invest in India. Then the next point is increase in foreign technology agreements. Under the new policy, government had a very liberal approach towards importing foreign technology. That is, now the businesses, Indian businesses, they can enter into a foreign technology agreement uh, in order to get modern technology from other countries. Okay, and they can hire foreign technicians without taking prior permission from RBI. And also, under this policy, there is no need for approval for making payments for the foreign technology or for foreign technicians or for getting their own technology, that is a technology that they develop themselves, to be tested from some other foreign country. Okay, for all these things it doesn't need a prior approval. So these are some changes introduced through new economic reforms. That is, the government had a very welcoming approach towards foreign technology agreements. So now Indian companies can enter into foreign technology agreements with foreign companies, and also they can hire technicians from outside India without taking prior approval from RBI. And they can also pay money, or they can make payments for foreign technology or for foreign experts or for testing their technology. I mean, that is a technology that a company developed in India. If they want to test it abroad, for that also they don't need any prior approval. Okay. Then the next point is setting up joint ventures. The conditions for setting up of joint ventures abroad, this in any foreign country, such all the set conditions were simplified or made liberal. And also, if a foreign investor is making a joint venture in India, then all the procedures were simplified. And not only that, in that case, earlier there was a restriction regarding the percentage of share he can hold, but now he can hold more than 51% of share in a joint venture set up in India. Okay, so and also another thing is, since the MRTP Act was removed, and instead of that we had a Competition Act. Actually, this Competition Act came into existence in 2002. So because of this change, MRTP Act was taken off and Competition Act came to existence. That also actually simplified the procedures. That's not only procedures, it actually helped in making global acquisitions and mergers by Indian companies, because MRTP Act was actually acting as a hindrance for such global acquisitions and mergers. So with the removal of MRTP Act, global acquisitions and mergers increased. Okay, so these are some of the advantages or plus points that we got because of new economic reforms in the case of joint ventures. So next point is liberalization. That is, for promoting globalization, government has liberalized many acts, many policies and all. That is, it has liberalized foreign trade policy, EXIM policy that we have already mentioned. Then foreign investment policy was liberalized. Then industrial licensing policy, then taxation policy, monetary policy. Such policies were all liberalized, and then it also simplified the procedures. Okay, procedures for foreign trade and transactions and all that. Then a single window clearance scheme was started, that is for reducing the issues or procedures, that is lengthy uncomfortable procedures were reduced, and the bureaucratic hurdles were reduced, so that we can promote foreign investment. Okay, so these are some of the measures or liberalization measures taken for improving globalization. Under new economic reforms, government started promoting private sector. That is, it has opened different industries or different sectors which were previously reserved for public sector. So this broadening of the uh, possibilities of privatization or private sector has actually helped, or it actually attracted more foreign investors to invest in the Indian economy. Okay, so that is about privatization, or that is how privatization helped globalization. Then next point is setting up of Foreign Investment Promotion Board, FIPB. That is, for attracting foreign investment to India, government has set up this particular board, FIPB. Okay, this board actually arranges conferences in India as well as in other foreign countries so as to attract foreign investors to India. Then next point is allowing Indian corporate sector to raise funds in foreign market. That is, now the Indian companies can raise cheaper funds from the foreign capital markets. That is, their cost of capital is reduced because the funds which are available in overseas market or foreign markets are much cheaper when compared to the Indian capital market. Okay, the Indian capital which is available at the Indian capital market. So that will be beneficial for the Indian companies. Then the last point is financial sector reforms. Reforms were introduced in banking sector, insurance sector, money market and capital market, etc. So such reforms actually made the environment much safer for the investors. That is for both domestic, that is local investors as well as for the foreign investors. Our economy, our environment became more safer and healthier for them. And another aspect is for checking or for controlling scams in the financial sector, some regulatory authorities like SEBI, RBI, such authorities were introduced. Okay, or they were strengthened. The Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority and all such regulatory authorities were strengthened or introduced for ensuring the avoidance of scams, financial scams. Okay, so these are the steps taken for promoting globalization in India. Now let's see what are the advantages and disadvantages of globalization. First, the positive effects of globalization. The first point is increase in foreign trade. That is, due to globalization or as a result of the export import policies, uh, India has started getting or it has actually increased its share in the world trade. Okay, international trade. Its share in international trade started increasing because of the new economic reforms and the changes in or liberalization of EXIM policy. So that is a big advantage, and because of that, what happens is our GDP started increasing. Okay, such improvements were seen in the Indian economy. Then the second point is increase in foreign investment. When we say foreign investment, it includes both foreign direct investment and portfolio investment. As a result of globalization, both these, that is FDP as well as portfolio investment, both these investments started increasing. Now, what is FDI or foreign direct investment? Foreign direct investment is actually when a foreign company starts a new company in India, or it is buying the shares of a already established company. Okay, a local company which is already there in India. If a foreign company buys the shares of such a company, then also it is foreign direct investment. That is, in that case, the management of such a company and the ownership of such a company goes to the foreign management. Oh, sorry, foreign investor. Okay, in that case, it is said to be FDI or foreign direct investment. So there what happens is the foreign investor will be taking the risk, and he'll be responsible for the profit or loss of such a company. Okay, that is foreign direct investment. Then next is portfolio investment. In this portfolio investment, foreign companies or foreign institutional investors, which we call as FII, they will be buying shares or debentures of local native companies, and the management and control. Okay, in the case of FDI, the management and control will go to the foreign investor. But in the case of portfolio investment, what happens is the management will be still with the domestic company or the native local company. Okay, so there is a significant increase in the foreign investment in India because of through these two kind of investments after this economic reforms. Okay, so that is why we said increase in foreign investment is a positive effect of globalization. Then the next point is foreign collaboration, increase in foreign collaboration. Globalization actually promoted foreign collaboration, that is collaboration of foreign companies with Indian companies. These collaboration can be technical collaboration or financial collaboration or both. Okay, involving both. That is, in financial collaboration, the foreign company will be providing finance or financial resources to a Indian company. Whereas in the case of technical collaboration, the company, foreign company, will be giving modern technology, their own technology, to Indian company. Okay, so that is about foreign collaboration, that is technological or technical or financial collaboration, or in some cases both these, that is financial resources as well as technical resources will be provided. Okay, so that is about foreign collaboration. Then next point is increase in foreign exchange reserves. Okay, we know that this economic reforms were introduced in order to this particular reforms were introduced because of the low foreign exchange reserves that India had at that point of time. Okay, so as a result of this globalization, our foreign exchange reserves started increasing. Next point is expansion of market. That is, as part of globalization, the size of market has increased. That is, now Indian businesses can expand their businesses around the globe. Okay, wherever they want, they can start their own, they can expand their business to in whichever country they want. For example, we have many multinational companies like Infosys or Wipro or Tata. So they are all having their companies in different countries around the world. So that's how our market has expanded. Okay, an Indian company can sell its products or services anywhere in the world. There's no restriction for that. Then the next point is technological development. So because of globalization, what happened is the foreign technology started coming to India, or there was an inflow of foreign technology to India. And in many of the cases, this foreign technology is much superior or modern when compared to the indigenous technology that we were having. Okay, so the Indian businesses can use modern technology, much advanced technology, and that will definitely help them to produce more or to increase their efficiency, productivity, and finally their profitability. Okay, then next point is brand development. So globalization promoted the use of branded goods. Okay, nowadays we are all using branded goods. Okay, because of this, or the plus point of these branded goods is that they are all having good quality. They are all durable. Okay, so we could get better quality, better products. So the Indian customers, they started getting better quality products. Then next point is development of capital market. That is, globalization helped in development of Indian capital market. There's many foreign investors now invest in Indian capital market, and so the inflow of foreign investment is increasing. Okay. Next point is development of service sector. That is, globalization actually helped in the growth of service sector. Because of the foreign companies that came to India, there was a tremendous improvement in the services. That is service sector, like telecom industry, then insurance, banking, etc. So telecom, I think we are all witnessing it, right? That is, we know that now mobile phones are like very cheap and very popular in India. Each and everyone is having at least one mobile phone. That's all because of the foreign companies that entered India, and all our service sectors started improving because of this. The next point is increase in employment. That is because of globalization, employment opportunities increased. That is foreign companies when they started their production centers here or trading units here in India, naturally they need employees, and ours is a very comparatively cheap labor market. So naturally they will be ready to start their units in India, and so our employment opportunities increased. So many of our Indians are now working in foreign companies, foreign insurance companies, mobile companies, or um, many other multinational companies. Many of our Indians are working there. The next point is reduction in brain drain. So, as a result of globalization, these MNCs came to India, and when they came to India, as I already said, they need employees, and so when they need employees, they are ready to give good package. They are ready to give good salary to the employees. Not only salary, but they'll be providing good working conditions and good facilities for them. So many of our Indians, especially the skilled labor, actually it is more about the skilled labor. They started getting good jobs, and before that, the condition was like most of our skilled employees or most of our intelligent people, they were not getting good jobs according to their potential and according to their skills. They were not getting good jobs and good packages here in India, and so what happens, they'll be going abroad, and they'll be going abroad seeking good jobs for them. So when MNC started coming to India and they started offering good jobs to these people, they'll naturally uh, will be ready to work in India itself. They won't go out. That is how it reduces brain drain. But actually, it has another aspect, that is these companies, they'll recruit Indians, and later on they'll be appointing these people to their foreign subsidiaries or foreign headquarters, or some other country. They'll be having units in some other country, and we Indians will be posted there. And so as a result of that, again brain drain is happening. Okay, so we cannot say that it is purely an advantage, but it has its own advantage as well as disadvantage. Then the last point is improvement in standard of living. That is, as we said, we started getting good quality products, branded products, good quality products at a very low price. Not very low, but comparatively, when you consider the worth of the product, the prices were low. So we started getting good products at a lower price. That's how our standard of living improved. So these are some of the positive effects of globalization. Uh, Saying this, it doesn't mean that it has only positive effects, but it also has got its own negative effects. Now we'll see what are the negative effects of globalization. The first disadvantage of globalization is loss to domestic industries. That is, as part of globalization, many foreign companies came to India, and so the competition increased. And because of the high competition, the many of the domestic units or our Indian companies could not survive. That is, they were not able to face the competition. The foreign companies, they were giving, or they were providing uh, quality goods at a reasonable or a cheap rate, and the domestic industries were not able to provide such quality and at such rate. This made them fail in the competition, and so they had to close down. And especially the small scale and cottage industries, they suffered a lot because they could not uh, cope up with the competition in the Indian market, because these foreign companies, they were having branches many places. They were having they were producing a lot. They were producing in mass, and so they have the advantage of economy of scale. That is, when they are producing a lot, that is a greater quantity, they will be able to provide one product, a single unit, at a cheaper rate. Okay, because of this difference, that is, when an Indian company is making the same product, they won't be able to sell it at that rate because they may be producing only a very few uh, products of very few units, and so their rate will be high. So because of this, they were not able to face the competition, and so they failed in the market. Then the next point is unemployment. The foreign companies that came to India, they started using capital intensive technologies. And also the Indian companies, they also imported capital intensive modern technology. And so the requirement or the number of employees required were reduced with this increasing use of modern technology, automatic machines, computers, etc. And so definitely the employment opportunities got reduced, and many of the people in India had to face unemployment issues. Then coming to the next point, exploitation of labor. That is, when the employment opportunities reduced, or when modern technology were used for production and all, the unskilled laborers, they lost their job, or the requirement of unskilled laborers reduced. Okay, the opportunities for employment opportunities for unskilled laborers was reduced to a great extent because of this automatic machines, and all such modern technology. And so what happened? They had to work for a lower wage without any kind of job security, or they were all exploited. They had to work long hours without any good facility and all, because they were forced to work under such conditions, because they would always think that it is always better to have a job. Even if there is no much facility, there is no good wages also, they'll be working for such jobs because it is always better than having no job. Okay, so that is exploitation of labor. Then next point is demonstration effect. That is, when the foreign goods were available in India, the number of Indians using such foreign goods increased. That is, many of the consumers started using luxury products by imitating others. That is, by seeing others who were using such foreign goods, luxury goods, many of the Indians started using such products. And because of this, what happened? A tendency of wasteful consumption started in India. That is, we are now buying things not which are not very much necessary for us. We are just buying things for showcasing or for showing a kind of status and all. And not only that, even if we have one product, we'll be going and buying some other better product or a new one. Even if we are able to handle the same requirements with the product that we are having at home, we'll go and buy another one just to show off. Okay, such wasteful consumptions started happening in India, and as a result of this, what happened? The saving tendency reduced, the saving habit reduced, and naturally the saving and capital formation reduced. Then next point is increase in inequalities. Globalization has increased the inequalities in our country. That is, because of globalization, big companies and MNCs were benefited. Whereas the small scale industries, cottage industries, and all, they suffered a lot because of the competition and such issues. Then another aspect is, because of this globalization, higher income groups, they started getting good quality products, their standard of living improved. But whereas the lower income group, they started losing their jobs, they were not getting much money, and so naturally the gap increased. Okay, so the inequalities increased. Then next point is dominance of foreign institutions. That is, globalization actually helped the foreign companies to enlarge their market share in India. For example, if we look into the cool drinks market in India, we'll understand that the two companies that are dominating in that sector is, obviously, it is PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, right? So there we can understand that none of the local or domestic companies are able to reach to their level, or the market share that they are having is so much greater than any other domestic company. So there we can see a very clear dominance of a foreign company. Not one foreign company, it is two foreign companies. They are dominating the industry. Then next point is bad effect on culture and value system. That is when global companies or foreign companies come to India and they provide their products, they are actually distorting our culture and value system as well, because their products and services would not be as, I mean, it is not very suitable, or it is not considering the culture and value of our country. And not only that, they'll be advertising in a different manner. Maybe there may be vulgar advertisements, there may be that, all such things can be distorting the thinking of young generation in our country. And also another issue is they may be uh, doing some kind of unethical practices like corruption and all, that is bribing our officials. They may be bribing our officials in order to attain their uh, interest, or if they are going for a particular transaction that may not be beneficial to our country, but maybe very much profitable to the company. In that case, they'll be ready to bribe the official. And so what happens, sometimes our officials, they also indulge in such activities, and that can cause harm to the nation. But the truth is that not only foreign companies, but our own companies or Indian companies also do the same. So there is no difference. Anyways, that is such issues are also being caused by globalization. Then next point is less entry in strategic area. Foreign companies, they usually will be ready to invest in consumer goods, that is like ready-made garments, cosmetics, processed goods, or cool drinks, then dental products, such things, because these are more profitable. They may not be ready to invest in uh, those industries which are very vital to the economic development of our country, like steel, power, fertilizers, etc. So these are all very much important. These are all companies that strategic area which are very important for the development of our nation. So these foreign companies, they'll not invest in these areas. And also they may not be investing in high risk projects also, okay, because they are all like they are more interested in making more profit. They're not thinking, or they're not concerned about the growth of our economy, okay. And also they won't be ready to invest in research, or they won't be interested in investing in uh, technology and capital goods and all, because that is all those things are not benefiting them to this extent, okay. It is the consumer goods that will be more beneficial to them, so they will be investing in such things only. Whereas for our nation, as an economy, we need these industries like power, steel, fertilizers, technology, development of technology. All such things are very much essential for our country. Next point is production of prohibited goods. That is, the foreign companies, they'll be interested in making more profit. And for making more profit, at times they may be ready to produce goods which are harmful for the consumers. So many times what happens is the global companies, uh, they may be producing medicines or any other products which may be banned in our country, which may be banned in the host country. Okay, they may be producing such things for making more profit. So these global companies may be making more profit at the cost of the health and safety of the consumers in the parent country, that is the host country. Okay. Then the next point is political interference. That is, global companies, they at times they act as harmful to the economic and political freedom of the host countries. That is, these companies, they may be interfering in the politics of the host country for making benefits. That is like they may be feeling that this if this particular person comes to power, or if this particular party comes to power, that will be beneficial to them, and they may be bribing such politicians or like that. Or uh, they may be spending money for making that particular party win the election. Okay, in such ways they may be indulging into the politics of the host country. That is definitely not good for the country. The next point is unbalanced regional development. That is, the global companies, they always want to set up companies or units, their own units in developed cities or towns where they have enough facilities, that is, infrastructure facilities and all, because it will be easy for them. Uh, they will be never taking any move to set up companies in backward regions where there is not much infrastructure. This actually causes development of already developed areas. That is, the backward areas, underdeveloped areas remains underdeveloped, remains backward, whereas already developed cities will be developing further. And finally, what happens, because of overpopulation and all, issues will be happening in those developed areas also. So this regional disparities happen due to foreign companies. It is actually not only just foreign companies, private companies also does the same thing at times. Then the next point is tax evasion. That is, the foreign companies, in order to escape from the from paying taxes in the host country, what they do is they may be buying intermediary goods from their own subsidiaries, which are in some other country, at a very high rate. Okay, so that they can show their local profit as less. Okay, that is, a particular company, if it is having a production unit in India, and it is making a product X. Okay, for making this product X, they need Y and Z, and they are getting this Y and Z from a subsidiary of the same company, from which is functioning in some other nation. Okay, so they'll be buying this Y and X from that particular subsidiary. So what they do is they'll show a high price for this Y and Z. They'll buy these Y and Z at a very high price, and so as to produce X in India. So what happens? The total profit that they earn will be less, because they are buying the raw materials, or their intermediary goods X and Y and Z at a higher price. So definitely the profit they are earning in India will be shown less. Okay, so this is a method for reducing the local profit, so that they don't have to pay much tax in India. Another way is they may be selling this particular, if they are making X in India, they may be selling it to a subsidiary which is in some other country. Okay, and they'll be selling it at a low price. Then also our local profit, their local profit can be shown as less. So what happens there? Also they can save their tax. So in these methods they'll be saving their tax, or the tax that the country, the government should get, that is reduced. Okay, so these kind of manipulation of bills and all happen in global companies, which is not good for the country. So these are some of the disadvantages or negative effects of globalization. With this, we come to the end of globalization. That is, we have already learned liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which are the key aspects of new economic reform. So if you are asked to write an essay on new economic reforms, give an introduction, then explain these three aspects. So next we are going to learn about export-import policy. That is, in this second module, we are learning about economic environment. And in economic environment, one of the major elements is economic policies. And economic policy includes industrial policy, export-import policy, monetary policy, fiscal policy, industrial licensing policy, etc. In that we have already learned industrial policy. It is industrial policy 1948, 56, then 91. All those policies we learned. Now we learn export-import policy. Export-import policy is also called foreign trade policy. This particular policy frames rules and regulations for exports and imports in a country. Okay, this particular policy actually provides a strategy of the government to be followed for promoting exports and regulating imports. This policy is periodically reviewed or updated. In India, it is once in 5 years. So this is done in order to include the changes which are required as per the changing business environment, both domestic as well as the international business environment. Okay. In this policy, we can understand, that is, the exporters and importers can understand the approach of the government towards various types of exports and imports. Okay, they'll get to know what is the attitude of the government towards a particular export of a particular item, or import of a particular item. So this policy actually regulates, or it actually controls everything regarding with the import and export of India. For that matter, any country. Okay, any country, if its own export import policy regulates the export and import of that particular country. We are saying about export and import. What is export and import? Export means selling of goods and services to a foreign country, whereas import means buying goods and services from a foreign country. So in this particular situation, or in this current globalization era, or in this global village, no economy can stand out separated from other economies, or it cannot survive without being connected to the rest of the world. Okay, so for any economy, that is for a developed or a underdeveloped country, it should connect with other economies around the world. So export and import is there in every country, or every country should export and import. And for a developing country like India, it is a must to import capital goods, or technology, or essential items like that. Okay, so for that we need to import, or we should depend on import. So when you import items, we will have to make the payments for that import. So for making payments, we need foreign money, foreign currency. Okay, so for that we need to export items, export goods and services to foreign countries. Then only we can earn foreign currency, foreign money. So we always have to balance these import and export. Okay, then only the economy can survive. So it is always preferable to have more export than import. If import is more than export, what happens? If import is more than export, we will have to depend on some kind of foreign debt for for making payments of our import. Okay, because we'll have foreign currency deficit and all. So we don't prefer that. That is not good for our economy. So we always try to promote export and reduce import. Okay, so in order to reduce import, government usually takes some measures. Okay, that is, some restrictions are kept. Some techniques are there for restricting the imports to the country. They are like import licensing, or import quotas, then import duties. That is, in some cases, government may even ban the import of a particular item, a specific good. That is, when we are having a particular item produced in our country, we don't need it to be imported. That is, if a particular item is produced in our country, and the government feels that if that particular item is being imported, then the demand for our domestic product will be reduced, or the price will be reduced. Price of that particular product will be reduced. In that case, the government may ban the import of that particular item. Okay, at times government used to ban the import of synthetic rubber and all, because that is for protecting the rubber agriculture, or rubber farming. Okay, because in that case, if rubber is being imported, then definitely the tire manufacturing industry and all, they'll get that rubber, they'll go for that rubber. And what happens, our rubber, that is natural rubber that is being produced in India, there will be no demand for natural rubber that is being produced in India. So in order to protect our own goods and services, or in order to protect our own companies, government at times used to ban import of some items. Or other methods of restrictions are import licensing. Import licensing means, if a particular company wants to import a particular item, then it has to get a license from the government before importing. Okay, then import quota means fixing a maximum limit for the quantity that can be imported during a particular period of time. Government may say, okay, from in 6 months this particular company can import only this much of quantity of this item. Okay, that is import quota. And then another method of restricting import is import duty, which we call customs duty. It is a tax that an importer has to pay at the time of importing goods. So all these things are for restricting import. This import duty will actually increase the cost of the imported good. Okay, the particular imported item will be costlier because of this import duty. Okay, in that way, the government will be protecting the domestic units, domestic companies producing that particular item. Okay, so these are some of the measures for restricting or controlling import. Then the government wants to promote export. Okay, on the other hand, government always tries to promote export. For that, government used to take some measures, like some export promotion schemes are being introduced from time to time. And also the government may be reducing the export duties, or it may be providing some incentives. It's like they'll be providing some loans at a concessional rate of interest in order to promote the exporters. Okay, so these are some of the measures taken by the government to regulate the export and import, that is promote the export and control the import. Then we'll see what are the major objectives of EXIM policy. That is major objectives of EXIM policy. One is to establish a framework for globalization. That is, in 1991 we have introduced, or we have come up with new economic reforms, and in that we introduced globalization. So through EXIM policies we always try to provide a framework for globalization. Then second point is to promote the productivity and competitiveness of Indian industry. That is, it is always trying to, the government is always trying to improve the productivity of Indian companies, the competitiveness of Indian companies, because the government wants the Indian companies to compete with the, or it should attain the standard of a multinational company or a foreign company. Okay, so it always tries to increase the productivity and competitiveness of Indian industry. Then to stimulate economic growth by providing essential raw materials, components and capital goods for production. That is, if the economy of the nation should improve, should grow, then definitely production should improve. No, so in order to increase production, what should be there? Essential raw materials, components and capital goods should be available. Okay, so through EXIM policy, the government tried to stimulate economic growth by providing essential raw materials, components and capital goods for production. Okay, then next point is enhancing the efficiency of agriculture and service sector and improving their competitiveness. So just like any other manufacturing or any other industry, the government always wants to increase the efficiency of agriculture. Agriculture, farmers are the backbone of any economy, any nation. Okay, so that needs to be improved, and at the same time service sector is also given importance, because now a major share of Indian economy or Indian economy depends a lot on service sector. Okay, so government always gives importance for service sector as well. Then another important objective is generating new employment. Okay, and employment is one of the major issue that India is facing at any time. Okay, it is not just now, but because it is the major problem that is there from the beginning until now it is there. So government always wants to generate more employment opportunities. Then another objective is encouraging the attainment of internationally accepted standards of quality. As I said before, government always wants the Indian industries to be competent with the foreign companies. Okay, so it always tries to improve the quality of Indian goods. So government always tries to make sure that Indian companies are producing goods at a quality which is in par with the quality of the goods produced by foreign companies. Then another point is providing quality products at a reasonable price. Okay, that is, we want good products, good quality products, but at the same time those products should be of reasonable price. That is, the price should be affordable for the Indian consumers. Then only the standard of living of the Indian people, common man, will improve. Okay, so these are some of the objectives of EXIM policy. Then in India, it is the Ministry of Commerce and Industry that announces EXIM policy. EXIM policy or foreign trade policy. It is in every 5 years it will be announcing the export-import policy. Usually it is on 31st of March every year that this policy is updated. This particular policy always tries to regulate import and promote export, that we have already discussed. But when we say that it tries to promote export, we should understand that it does not allow exporting the goods that are scarce and needed within the country. That is, if a particular item is its availability is low and it is required for the people of the country, then the government will restrict the export of that particular item. Okay, that is, if you export, if the government allow you to export that particular item, then what happens? The people of India won't get that item, so they need it. Okay, in that case, government will restrict the export of such goods. Then now coming to the current scenario, the last time when the EXIM policy was announced, it was in 2015. So 2015-20 policy was announced in 31st March 2015. So it would have expired on 31st March 2020. Okay, 2020. But because of the current situation, that is because of the pandemic outbreak and all, what happened this year, government said that this particular policy is extended for 1 year. That is, this policy is valid till March 2021. Okay, so that is a change. That is, usually it is usually the EXIM policy is announced in every 5 years, but this year it doesn't happen. This year it is extended for 1 more year. Okay, now when we talk about this particular policy, that is the current policy, this policy provides a framework for increasing export of goods and services, as well as generation of employment and increasing value addition in the country. That is, it as we said, it always provides a framework for increasing export. Okay, then another point is generation of employment. Those 2 points we have already discussed. Then another one is increasing value addition in the country in line with Make in India program. That is, we have a program, Make in India now, right? So in that program, we are aiming to improve the production in India. So as part of that, we are trying to improve the value addition, or we are trying to improve manufacturing, we are trying to improve production in India. Then another focus is to support manufacturing and service sectors. Okay, these 2 sectors are very important, so government is trying to support these 2 sectors through EXIM policy. Then in this policy, 2 schemes were introduced. It is merchandise exports and exports from India scheme for export of specific goods, and services exports from India scheme for increasing export of services, notified services. Okay, so these are some of the important points connected to the current policy. So with this, we come to the end of this session. We have discussed about EXIM policy. Now only 2 more topics are remaining in module 2. They are fiscal policy and monetary policy, that we will see in the next lecture. Thank you.